Should I sit here? Here.
Yeah, say a few words. Then let's go down the room.
Okay. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had it took the work of Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur to a new intellectual level. And I mean, I can't read his work without a dictionary. So he really established the precedent of presenting in English in a somewhat sophisticated way. And he was revolutionary. Rode in a car, wore an overcoat, dressed ways different than sadhus traditionally dressed, sent people to the Western world, and sadhus weren't supposed to leave India. So in many ways, he was a radical at the time, so radical that some Brahmins had plotted to kill him. And they went to the police to bribe the police. The police chief said, "Yes, I take bribes and I do these things, but I will not kill that sadhu." and because he understood that that's going beyond the edge of the corrupt times. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati grew up in British India. And so he set the precedent of which Prabhupada went to the next step of setting the priority of spreading Krishna consciousness over the priority of following local customs and traditions. And in his final frustrating years, he said he would rather sell the temples, because people were fighting over who gets what room, and print books and save the world rather than just have temples and traditions. I think for the modern day ISKCON, there's a lot to be learned from the examples set by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He gave initiation to women, gave a Brahmin initiation to women, just did things that were at the time and circumstance extremely radical. For us, it might be considered very ordinary now, but he set that precedent of caring for the mission over particular rituals and details. And he was never, and the temples became to him a burden interfering with the preaching rather than a mechanism for preaching. So quite bold, quite erudite. And he also, as I understand it, left the world somewhat prematurely because he understood that his disciples, for the most part, would not carry on the mission. But he blessed one disciple with a particular benediction to carry on the mission, our Prabhupada. And it almost reminded me of the story how Lord Chaitanya blessed Narottam Das Thakur, though in that case Narottam hadn't been born yet, but he left the blessing, you carry on the mission. In a slightly similar way, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati gave Prabhupada, our Prabhupada, the blessing to carry on the mission. Curiously, Prabhupada didn't spend that much time with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. When you add it up, it wasn't, other people live with Bhaktisiddhanta and etc. But Prabhupada, our Prabhupada did differently is he took every minute as a valuable time. And one of the characteristics that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati noted about our Prabhupada when he first met him, that he listened well, that he took seriously listening. And that was the beginning of the blessings for Prabhupada to carry on the mission to the West. With that, I'll stop.
Thank you. Okay. Very good. I'll just mention that the reason there was a plot to assassinate him is because he was giving Brahmin initiation
Yeah.
to Hindus who were not born Brahmins.
Yeah,
I mean, Westerners were, that was like unimaginable.
yeah.
So, Dara, do you want to say a few words?
Well, I'd like to, but he said everything.
Yeah, actually, that was very good. You really
Very
did say a
good.
lot. So, going around the room, do you want to?
Maybe some-
Sure.
So this is one of my favorite passages of Bhaktisiddhanta, but even Acharyas in general. And this is something that he wrote that I used to read it every day. It just and try to imbibe it as just kind of like a guiding statement for my life, something I can try to live out every day and really accept in my heart. The world stands in no need of any reformer. The world has a very competent person for guiding its minutest happenings. The person who determines that there is scope for reform of the world himself stands in need of reform. The world goes on in its own perfect way. No person can deflect it, even the breadth of a hair, from the course chalked out for it by Providence. When we perceive any change being actually effected in the course of events of this world by the agency of any particular individual, we must know very well that the agent possesses no real power at any stage. The agent finds himself driven forward by a force belonging to a different category from himself. The course of the world does not require to be changed by the agency of any person. What is necessary is to change our outlook on the world. The scriptures declare that it is only necessary to listen with an open mind to the name of Krishna, lips of a devotee. As soon as Krishna enters the listening ear, he clears up the vision of the listener so that he no longer has any ambition of ever acting the part of reformer of any other person, because he finds that nobody is left without the very highest guidance. It is therefore his own, by the grace of God, supreme necessity and nature he is increasingly able to realize by the eternally continuing mercy of Supreme.
I don't have much to add. Just the courage that it took to make the adjustments that he did at that time, at the turn of the century, was exemplary.
The Acharya is very much in the same line of, despite what others may be doing, not following the guru. He's really showing us the way to go. And again, taking a lot of criticism for himself, but pushing on. So it's very amazing.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll say a few words. When Jimmy was reading, I was thinking, I was trying to understand really what's the essence of what Bhaktisiddhanta was saying. Because we live in a world, and he lived in a world which is, of course, riddled with so much corruption, exploitation, cruelty, and so on. And what I understand from that, from what was read, the quote from Bhaktisiddhanta, is that we ultimately don't have the power to make the world what it should be. And that because ultimately Krishna is controlling everything, Ishvara Parama Krishna. And the only way to really change the world is to convince people to become Krishna conscious. Because if people can take up Lord Chaitanya's movement and they become seriously connected to Krishna, then their destinies change. And the world, the state of the world, is just the totality of all the destinies of the souls in it. So I think that's what I understand Bhaktisiddhanta meant. That when you have a world full of people that have certain karma, certain destiny, you can't change the laws of nature. You can't change the laws of God. Krishna says in the Gita, Maya Dhyakshena Prakriti Suyate. Maya means by me, adhyakshena, literally oversight or supervision. By my supervision, by my oversight, adhyaksha, prakriti suyate, literally Prakriti is giving birth. Prakriti is begetting souls in different conditions. Maya Dyakshena Prakriti Suyate Satcharacharam, all the moving, unmoving, living beings. Hetunanena Konte, it is for this reason, Jagat Parivartate, that the world is turning around, the world is functioning the way it does. And so we know that Prabhupada, the great disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta, changed our destiny because he changed our use of our free will. And so when we become Krishna conscious, then that's a real change. Otherwise, without Krishna consciousness, even the word Krishna uses, viparivartate, the world is simply turning around, going around and around. So how can you change that? What can you do about it? And that's what Prabhupada emphasized so strongly as a disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta, that don't waste time trying to change the material situation, because only when people take to Krishna consciousness can they get out of the cycle, samsara. Because, for example, you may make the world better for this person or those people, but then they will again come around, again commit sinful activities, and things will just be the way they started. So, as Brahmatirtha pointed out, Bhaktisiddhanta was so revolutionary in his time and heavily criticized. Prabhupada once told me a story about Bhaktisiddhanta, actually. How he dealt with the people who thought they were rasikas or wanted to just hear about Radha Krishna and the gopis instead of just doing what Lord Chaitanya did and embracing all of our teachings and what Prabhupada did. He said the Bhaktisiddhanta was coming to Vrindavan to speak for a month in Vrindavan. And so all the Babajis at Radha Kund and other places, they were very excited. Now we're going to hear intimate pastimes of Krishna. And Bhaktisiddhanta knew they were thinking that way and they were talking that way. So when Bhaktisiddhanta arrived there, Prabhupada said for 1 month, he lectured every day on the first verse of the Bhagavatam. For 1 month, every day on the first verse of it doesn't mean that Bhaktisiddhanta was not relishing Radha and Krishna Leela. It does mean that Prabhupada wasn't. But there's a certain decorum, there's a certain. And so if we see Prabhupada and Bhakti, so for 1 month he lectured on the first verse of the Bhagavatam to show them that it's like, if you've got it, don't flaunt it. So anyway, one interest, Bhaktisiddhanta was so, in some ways, very modern. He, just like that passage, the passage that Jamuna read, it was what, among other things, what struck me is that it was very contemporary. It was very, the English was very contemporary. Mm-hmm. And as Brahmacharya said, Bhaktisiddhanta, he wore what some devotees in their wisdom call karmi clothes. And he rode around in a car. I mean, sadhus just didn't do that. Sadhus didn't do that. Sadhus didn't ride in cars. They didn't wear those kinds of clothes. They didn't they weren't concerned with book printing, and they didn't form institutions. Now we kind of take for granted that sadhus do that or sannyasis do that, but this is all revolutionary. Even Bhaktisiddhanta apparently is the one that adopted what now in ISKCON is called the sannyas dhoti. Why? Because it was successfully used by the Ramakrishna mission. They were kind of like, as they say, the cat's meow. I mean, they were very popular at the time, so he adopted it, the kurta, that kind of sannyasa. So he was, and that's the sign of a real advanced devotee. He just wants to save people. It's almost like, say a ship is going down, you're trying to save people, and someone says, well, you can't do, that's against the rules. There's emergency dharma, there apadharma, where you do things that you just do what you have to do. I was speaking yesterday to a Guru Kuli. A young lady was saying that they kept insisting that even if by dressing, in a certain way or doing that we could save a lot more souls, we shouldn't do it. Because, we shouldn't compromise. It's like we have our pride. We're not going to change anything for these people, even if it means that, that souls aren't saved. So there's a type of Brahminical arrogance, which Prabhupada said brought the Kali Yuga. And when Bhaktisiddhanta, even though Krishna says in the Gita that our Varna is by our nature. When Krishna in chapter 18 is describing the qualities of the four Varnas, in each case he says Swabhavajam. That position is born of one's nature. It's born of one's nature, not by one's birth. Of course, Prabhupada always quoted the verse chapter, Varnimasistam Guna Karma. It's by guna and karma, your quality and how you can work. And Krishna in chapter 18 describes the four Varnas in detail, like for Brahman, Shamodamata, Bhakshocham, the quality of each Varna. And after he says, for example, Brahma Karma Swabhavajam. A Brahman is not by, Prabhupada said, for 2 paisa, I don't know what the current going rate is, but in Prabhupada's time, it was 2 paisa, you can buy a Brahman thread. So, what does that mean? It means you had 2 paisa to your name. That's all it means. The real Brahmins are those who actually have the qualities. The ceremony, of course, is done, but that's not the real point. The real point is the qualities. The qualities. So Bhaktisiddhanta gave his initiation to people by their qualities, not by their birth. Anyway, Bhaktisiddhanta is obviously one of the great towering figures, especially in the modern age. And as Prabhupada said, this is how the Vedic culture goes on. These extraordinary personalities come to us. One time Prabhupada was asked about his guru, how would you describe your guru, Bhaktisiddhanta? And Prabhupada said, what can I say? He was a Vaikuntha man. So we should count our blessings. We are so fortunate that we even know about Bhaktisiddhanta, that we can appreciate him to some extent, and that we have the extraordinary privilege of honoring him today. So we all get wrapped up in our, whatever things. But it's good on days like this, take a step back and just count our blessings. So thank you all for attending this program. And so they will say that, oh, you know what we should do? We should say, doesn't have a songbook? There's 3 verses that were composed of Bhaktisiddhanta. You should sing those. Sunday home prayers. I'm fine. Should be right in the front. How do they call it? Standard prayers. I'll read them and translate them. Tell you exactly what they mean. So, first, of course, Namo Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prishtaya, Bhutale Srimate Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Namine. Then Sri Varshabhanavi Devi Daitaya. Radharani is called Varshabhanavi because her father is Vrishabhanu. So it's called a patronym, a name derived from the father's name. And sometimes the mother's name, like Kaunteya from Kunti. So Sri Varshabhanavi Devi Daitaya. So obeisance, I bow to one who's very dear, who's beloved by Sri Varshabhanavi Devi. Bhaktisiddhanta is beloved, is loved by her. And Kripabdi Abdi means ocean. And unto Bhaktisiddhanta was the ocean of mercy. Kritabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine. And he's the one who gives realized knowledge of our relationship with Krishna. Krishna Sambandha Vijnana means realized knowledge of our relationship with Krishna. And he gives that. I mean, what could be more important ever than that knowledge. And then prabhave, unto the Prabhu. It's interesting because here there's sometimes all these sort of like scholastic debates on who should be called Prabhu. But actually here Bhaktisiddhanta, because it just means master. Prabhave, unto the Prabhu namaha, obeisances. So that's the first verse. And then Madhuryo Jvala Premadhya Sri Rupa Nuga Bhakti Da Sri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya. That's all one compound in Sanskrit. So Namostute, this is directly addressing Bhaktisiddhanta. Let me bow to you. It's let there be obeisances unto you. It's the imperative, us to. And then so I'll break down this compound for you. Actually, for some reason, which I suppose you could talk about academically, if you take these Sanskrit compounds and start at the end and go backwards, that's how you can understand them in English. So this compound is unto Bhaktisiddhanta Vigrahaya, who is the very form, Shakti, of the power, Karuna, of the mercy of Sri Gaura, Bhakti Da, and he is giving. So he is giving devotion. Bhakti Da, he's giving devotion, and he's giving devotion to us because he's a follower of Rupa Goswami. Anuga, follow Rupa Goswami. And that bhakti that he is giving is premadya, enriched with love, which is ujjvala, shining with conjugal rasa. Madhurya is from the word madhura, which means, literally it means very sweet, but it's sort of a word for conjugal rasa. So that is Bhaktisiddhanta. He is the vigraha. He is the very form, the personification of the power, of the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. And he is the personification of the power of the mercy of Lord Chaitanya because he's giving devotion in the line of Rupa Goswami, Sri Rupa, and that devotion he is giving is enriched with the shining love of Godhead, which comes from appreciation of Radha and Krishna. So it's very interesting because here we have this line which states that he is relishing the mood of Radha and Krishna, and yet when he saw people were trying to enjoy that, he only spoke on the first verse of the Bhagavatam. So it's a combination of actually embodying and teaching the highest love of Godhead, at the same time exercising extreme discretion in how these things are presented. So, and then the last verse is Namaste Gaudavani Sri Murtaye. Obeisances, I bow Sri Murtaye. Murtaye means unto the Murti, unto the personification, unto the very form of the message of Gauda, of Lord Chaitanya. So Lord Chaitanya brought his message, and Bhaktisiddhanta personifies that message. He's the Murti of that message. He's the visible form of that message. And so here we have the word Murti. In the previous verse, there was the word Vigraha, which are sort of synonymous. So Namaste Gauravani Sri Murti Dina Tarine, and unto the Savior of the fallen. So Tarine literally means one who brings people across from the material world to bring them across to the spiritual platform. So Rupa Nuga, again, for the second time, he's a follower of Rupa, and Virudhapa Siddhanta Dvanta Harine. And he takes away, Harine means, under Bhaktisiddhanta, takes away Dvanta, the darkness of Apasiddhanta, false conclusions about the absolute truth. Apa means kind of like bad in Sanskrit or like deviant. So Apasiddhanta, false siddhantas, false philosophies, which create darkness, and Bhaktisiddhanta takes away that darkness. And those are apasiddhantas, which are rupa nuga viruddha, which are contrary to what Sri Rupa taught. So again, we have again rupa nuga. Actually, is it in all three verses? No, in the second two verses. So viruddha means something which subverts, something which is false. These apasiddhantas, which create darkness in the world, and as a follower of Rupa Goswami, Bhaktisiddhanta removes that darkness from the world. And so, so any questions about these verses?
I don't have a question about that verse, but
Yes.
I would appreciate if you could tell me what is the first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, if it does not take too long.
Dhanadhyasya verse.
The verse that he kept teaching on?
Yes, yeah, it's on the shelf. You can look it up. So, no other questions? So, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur ki jai.